the Guttaizo way, difference is bad, you must eliminate it. The Rutenso and Six Sigma type methodologies. This is all about, yeah, you heard about that? Yeah, difference is bad, eliminate difference. Difference is a sign you're not managing the process closely enough. I'm summarizing you. Fundamentally, difference is bad. On the other hand, we can take the other view, difference is potentially good. And it's inevitable. In a world where change is happening all the time, difference is inevitable. So this is, you can't really see this, is a picture of a rock face, out of which is emerging a tiny little plant. Tiny little plant. And if we were trying to make rock faces, we'd say, oh, the plant's bad, get rid of it. But if we're more interested in using the difference, the plant provides all sorts of interesting possibilities. And in any process, things will be different. When we make one motor car and it's going to be slightly different somehow to the previous one. Now, the question is that difference useful? How do we use that difference? Here's a lovely quote from a guy you probably haven't heard of, William Bateson. William Bateson was the man who invented the word genetics around the turn of the 20th century. And he was the father of Gregory Bateson, who is quite a big name here in California in the 70s and 80s as one of the fathers of systems thinking in ecology. He was died in about 1980. But William Bateson wrote this in his memoir: treasure your exceptions, the things that are unexpected. When there are none, the work gets so dull that no one cares to carry it further. Keep them always uncovered and in sight. Exceptions are like the rough brickwork of a growing building which tell you there's more to come and shows where the next construction will be. So when things change accidentally and randomly, that might be really, really useful. And this is the sort of thing that scientists are very bad at, acknowledging exceptions. I speak here as a physicist by training, and now, as I say to people, a recovering physicist. You're never really better, but it's a day at a time. So here's a scientist looking at a small difference. There's a creature emerging from the Petri dish, and the scientist saying to her colleague, it's not significant, it's only 1 in 20,000. We can ignore that. So, this of course is a funny cartoon and a metaphor, but the idea is very sound. If it happens differently once, and that difference is better, then it's worth keeping and worth hanging on to. It's a mindset philosophy. Okay, here's another story from our consulting group. Just because it's not irrelevant, just because it's small. I'm going to take you to a chemical plant in the north of England. The chemical plant is an old plant. It's been there since the late 19th century in some form. It employs 7,000 people. It's the biggest employer in the town where it's located. And I had a call one day from the manager who we were working with on some other issue. And he said, hey, you've got to come and help me. I've got this really, really, really tough problem. So I said, okay, let's go. Went to see him. I said, what's the problem? And he said, aha, I'll tell you what the problem is. Better still, I'll tell you who the problem is. And my heart sinks at this problem. And the problem is the Site Health and Safety Inspector. And every chemical plant in the UK, and probably in the United States too, has a kind of government inspector guy, employed by the Health and Safety Agency, to keep an eye on it, make sure they're not breaking any laws and so on, and generally give advice. And I said, but you've always had a Health and Safety Inspector, and he said, yes, and we've always been able to get on with them. But this guy, the new guy, he's a jerk. And I said, a jerk? Yes, really. He's young, he's inexperienced, all he wants to do is catch me out. He doesn't want to cooperate with me, he just wants to beat me up. All he wants to do is catch me breaking the law. I cannot get a relationship with him. I've tried and tried and tried everything I know about how to build a relationship with this silly man, and he's an idiot. The trouble is that he's an idiot with a lot of power. And he has the right to close the plant down in extremis. And he has a piece of paper on his desk right now which will force me to close half the plant if I don't satisfy him about the safety standard. Now, we all know this is an old plant. We all know that there's work to be done. What we're working with is how we do that while keeping it running. And if we close half the plant down, the economics of this place is already on a knife edge. My head office are going to be saying, now it's time we shut the whole thing. And that's 7,000 jobs. Can't afford that. The town can't afford that. So I said, okay, so let's think about this, I said. You want a good relationship with this inspector? Yes. Okay. On a scale from 0 to 10, think about the best, most productive interaction you've had with this inspector. And the guy thought for it. It seemed like an 8. On a scale from 0 to 10. Best interaction with the inspector? Yes. 0. And I waited. And then he said, apart from once. And I said, apart from once, eh? He said, yes, once. I did once see him do 3 out of 10 for 15 seconds. And I said, 3 out of 10 for 15 seconds? Ooh. Tell me about that. And he went on to describe this occasion at the end of a meeting a week before in the very same office, where they'd all run out of things to say and were fed up with each other, were waiting for the lunch to arrive. The sandwiches were coming in, and he noticed the inspector just start to have a conversation with the plant engineering manager about the football. Slightly human interaction. And I said, really? That's interesting. So how come he's talking to the engineering director? And we started to talk about why was he comfortable talking to the engineering director? Because he knew him a bit. Because they had offices close to each other. Because it was an informal moment, the pressure was off. There weren't 15 company people on one side of the table and the inspector on the other side. Yeah. Little tiny things. He knew the engineering manager. They both supported the same football team. It was at the end of the meeting. He relaxes during meetings. And we came up with this idea at the end of this conversation that he works better in small groups than big. He works better with people he knows. He works better when he's had a chance to get his ideas together. And the manager starts to come up with small steps. Well, we're going to have much smaller meetings. We could have limited of only just 2 or 3 people he knows very well. We could offer him use of an out-of-work service office down the corridor for him to get his stuff together rather than running straight out the car park and coming into the meeting. 14 things in the end the manager came up with. 14 tiny little things that were using what was there and cost total of precisely 0. And the manager, I said, okay, go on with it, go do it. And the manager went away. And I went home, and nothing happened for 6 weeks. I'm like, oh no, what's happened? I can't bear it. So in the end, I phoned him up. Couldn't wait any longer. Phoned him up. And I said, how's it going? And no word of a lie, he said, how's it going with what? And I said, the inspector? Oh, the inspector! Oh, that's all sorted. Oh, that's all right. No, we had the small meeting, and he started opening up straight away, and now we're working on a joint safety plan together. Oh, right. So, plant saved, 7,000 jobs. Because we know the difference between 0 and 3 for 15 seconds. Just because it's small doesn't mean it's irrelevant. So tiny things can have the seeds in them to produce something really useful. That's the way of thinking of Rutenso. Now, just briefly, the role of the leader. We all know the idea of the leader as hero. That's a kind of Bataillon thing. The leader as hero, leading us on, saving the world. Usually it's a man, but saving the world, knowing everything, being flawless, courageous, and brave. Some of you who do leadership classes will probably then have heard of this other idea, Robert K. Greenleaf's servant leadership work. Fantastic counterblast to that.